It is extremely complex. The industry, almost everyone operates in a slightly different way. And so building software that can be flexible to the customer's demands as well as to the day-to-day use cases. We saw that often these legacy competitors would do one right, but they would maybe miss the mark on the other. So for example, it may be a seamless move-in process, but maybe for the resident, but then on the agent side, oh, well, I have to navigate between 2 to 3 different dashboards. The more flashy things, being able to elevate the resident app with things like amenity reservations, right? Being able to book those and give the operator a ton of control.
Jack, thank you for joining us for this edition of Inside the Funnel. You worked across tech, consulting, venture, cybersecurity. What are the biggest surprises coming to multifamily, and how have those past experiences shaped your lens on the work that you do with ResApp and online leasing?
I remember when I interviewed here, my manager at the time, a guy named Ben Sobel, one of the best leaders I've ever worked under, he told me as part of an interview that multifamily technology specifically is very complex. And to your point, coming from cybersecurity before, venture due diligence where you're looking into like AI companies, fintech companies, et cetera, I'll be candid, I kind of like internally rolled my eyes at that statement. I was like, there's no way it can be that complex. And so I would say that's what I would say was the biggest learning point. Coming in, working on these products, understanding, whether it's something like online leasing, where you can have someone add a roommate and decide right after signing their lease they want to add a pet, and then, well, now I just got a new car, and, well, I don't like my roommate anymore, let's remove him from the lease, right? All of these different workflows and scenarios that you need to be accounting for. And I think the funny thing is, and a lot of people multifamily would say that those use cases, those examples just grow, right? And then you layer on the jurisdictional components, right? Making sure that funnel, as well as, and more importantly, our customers are compliant in different areas. I would say that that's the biggest learning curve, right? It is extremely complex. The industry, almost everyone operates in a slightly different way. And so building software that can be flexible to the customer's demands as well as to the day-to-day use cases, I think that's been extremely surprising of how nuanced those can be.
And I also think that points out the need to be empathetic, put yourself in the operators and the renter's shoes of all those like different life moments. So you've worked on a lot of our products that renters actually use, our online leasing solution, Funnel Secure, which is our fraud prevention solution, and ResApp. These impact large portions of the renter experience, as well as both the team's workflows and their workload in terms of their day-to-day. What are some trends that you're noticing in terms of how execs are thinking about these moments in the renter journey and these portions of their team experience and workflows?
I think two general themes, because I feel like even just with that, looking across both, I guess separating the applicant experience and the renter experience or resident, I'm hearing two different things across the board. One, on the resident side, how can we create an experience that's, for a lack of better terms, both delightful for the resident, so moving in, making maintenance requests, which typically those aren't delightful experiences, to the agent where I am, supporting that move-in, right? This person's now established that this is going to be their future home for the next, whatever, X amount of months, but you don't want to sacrifice that agent experience. And so that's something where when we looked at the market and we looked at legacy tools, we saw that often these legacy competitors would do one right, but they would maybe miss the mark on the other. So for example, it may be a seamless move-in process, but maybe for the resident, but then on the agent side, oh, well, I have to navigate between 2 to 3 different dashboards. Oh, well, this is primarily just a bunch of link outs and I still need to manage these other vendors somewhere else. And so that was something where we wanted to be intentional as we built our move-in and as we built our resident app based on the feedback we were hearing. And that was essentially, how do we create an experience that allows the agent to be more hands-off, but hands-on when needed, and then allows the resident to essentially self-serve as much as possible, right? We talk here about like an Amazon experience where when you go to return an order on Amazon, you don't want to have to hop on a phone call with an agent at Amazon and walk through why you're returning and all that. You want to hit the URL that says return my order and self-serve that all completely. So that's how we envision and that's how we built our move-in checklist as well as our resident app as we think through things like mid-lease changes and maintenance requests. I would say on the flip side, and in somewhat of a similar fashion on the applicant experience, again, a lot of disjointed tools. Don Beveridge put out a really awesome article the other day on TechBloat. And I was reading through it and I was trying not to get salesy as I was thinking about it. But what we hear from customers is exactly what he's capturing in this report. He hit it. So many vendors doing so many different things. And to give the vendors credit, the thing that they're trying to do, they often do well. It's just when they're not connected well, whether that's from a lack of integration, whether that's from these link outs, these other dashboards. It's this pain of having to manage multiple systems. So when we were intentional on the online leasing front, we were intentional in building everything within one platform, within one application. And more importantly, as I look at the broader funnel product offering, we were intentional from a UI standpoint and from a change management standpoint to make the look and feel be the exact same as if you were just using our CRM out of the box, right? Of course, elevating it, right? New marketing automations, all that. But at the end of the day, we wanted that to be a seamless experience because we heard the pain of, hey, I'm in multiple systems right now. I have multiple tools trying to do the various different things across the experience. How can I bring that into one? And that's what we look to solve for, but we still hear that as a pain. And that's why a lot of people, in these conversations are hearing that you put everything into one. It was a very winded answer.
Yeah. That's great. Would expect nothing less, to be honest, but also appreciate you sharing what you hear from our partners. You're on a lot of the calls with them, and it's good to understand where they're at and share what they're thinking. When it comes to the application and move-in experience, you talked about it a little bit, but what's flying under the radar there? Like, what's no one really talking about that should be surfaced?
I think this one comes down to, for lack of better terms, control that you give the customer and where you embed those controls. A lot of the times when I look at move-in offerings, I'm just going to be candid, a lot of them look the same, right? It's a move-in checklist, which, to be clear, there's still the majority of management companies are still going with an email that says, give me these 6 documents. So if you've moved over to a move-in checklist, you are ahead of the curve. I'll share that. But even within that move-in checklist, what we've heard a lot of feedback on and what's flying under the radar is the controls you have. How do you create custom move-in tasks, right? Where you can point them down a direct channel, right? Have control over that experience as an operator so that you maintain a brand while pointing them towards your, let's say, connected device offerings, right? That they may need to have to get their keys. I think the other aspect that's flying under the radar, and you're going to hear as a theme through a lot of what I say, is integration. And that's, again, what we've historically seen, even for the legacy move-in partners, is when in doubt, link out, right? And that's, instead of building a deep integration, instead of having your, whether it's like a renter's insurance flow or your move-in payments flow, being able to actually manage those, capture them, surface that to the agent as well. Instead of doing all that within the move-in application, we see that historically people have linked out. But when you embed that within it, the turnaround times on it, as well as, and most importantly, the compliance on it, making sure everything is staying in one system, you're capturing it, you have a system of record. That's where we're seeing a lot of appetite. So for lack of better terms, no fancy bells or whistles, but rather how are we aggregating data in an efficient way that we can maintain compliance and give everything to the agent right away. So those are the trends that I see are flying under the radar.
You touched on this next one potentially in your answer to that. I just saw some updates in our product updates channel about the custom move-in tasks, but ResApp was one of our first big steps into the resident experience and truly like making sure that we're taking care of renters from the moment they first inquire through years and years of renewals. How has our ResApp product matured and what's next for it strategically?
This is a great question. And it's also perfectly timely. To your point, I would say our resident app, actually 6 months ago, I would have said our online leasing product was at the time the most innovative product in terms of just the amount of features and updates that we were pushing, almost what's felt like nonstop. And we're still doing that, let me be clear. But on the resident app, what it looks like today compared to when we launched it is night and day. Again, out of full candor, when we launched it, it was a payments portal. And that was about it. What is it now? I think you can go everything from what I would call the crucial elements, which are your maintenance requests. That's the number one question we get, outside of payments, of course, right? Can you capture my maintenance requests? Can I keep them within one app for my maintenance requests? So I would say areas where we've really elevated are on the maintenance side, whether it's multiple integrations, being able to push that back to your core PMS. But from the resident experience side, right, the more flashy things, being able to elevate the resident app with things like amenity reservations, right? Being able to book those and give the operator a ton of control, right? Whether that's nightly reservations, daily reservations, et cetera. Being able to book what we call resident appointments. And what that essentially is the ability to, right, go to the calendar of someone who maybe works at the property and you want to have a conversation about your lease, or you want to have a conversation about whatever it is, maybe an upcoming event that you want to hear more about, right? And we're able to leverage the foundation that we built in our CRM product and actually plug that into the resident experience and allow that self-service. I'd say the final thing, and again, this isn't going to make the product release headliners, but when you say these things to an operator, this is what piques their interest. It's making all of their core leasing information, as well as the ability to adjust items mid-lease, self-serviceable. And I would say that's where, outside of the bells and whistles, we have seen the biggest uplift from both the resident experience, but more importantly, the agent experience, right? Instead of someone shooting you an email and saying, hey, I just got a new dog, I want to add them to my lease, being able to go into our res app and make that adjustment in app, submit that request, and then it goes ahead and it begins kicking off that process for the agent to go into, essentially at that point, just confirm and send a new lease document or a new lease amendment for a signature, right? Things that take tremendous amount of time. Again, they're not the flashy thing, but it's the thing that your team's going to see, and that's what's going to catch their eye, and that's what they're going to be the most interested in. So those are the areas I'm most excited that we have significantly leveled up in even just the past 6 months.
I think even those resident appointments for team members, knowing when a resident is coming in to have a conversation so it's not overlapping with 3 phone calls, a tour, and a bunch of other things they're juggling, that's huge from an on-site perspective as well. If you had a crystal ball, what would you predict as the next evolution of enhancing the applicant to resident experience? Where do we go from here?
Michael Resin, we call him Rez on our team. This is what we spend hours each week talking about, is what's next. How can we take our product a step further? I may be biased. I feel like we have we have the industry leading solution on that applicant and resident experience. But we can't be content with that, is what we've decided. And so I would say things that we're really excited about, one is, of course, going to be on the AI front, right? I think what Funnel has done extremely well to set ourselves up for success is developing a platform AI solution. And so for those who aren't aware of what that means, it's, right, we're able to essentially, via a central brain, have all the information on your community that you've inputted, all the information on even locations near you, right? Grocery stores, things like that, and able to have all that in one central knowledge hub. So then, as we plug that into various aspects of our product, so take the applicant journey, right? I'm in app, instead of having to shoot an email to someone or go external to maybe answer a question about, hey, what's your income requirements? Or, hey, I'm trying to add a pet. It's only letting me add 2. What's going on here? Right? To layer AI in there to answer those questions in real time. To say, hey, well, our pet policy is, you can only have 2 per unit, right? Or, hey, our income requirements are X, Y, and Z. These are the form of incomes we require. So I think that's one, layering AI into the applicant experience as well as the resident experience, right? Being able to ask those questions of, how long can I reserve the pool for, right? Or I have an upcoming renewal, right? And this is stuff we have live. I think it's just embedding it deeper within the product. So upcoming renewal, can I negotiate that, right? Being able to embed that within our resident app so that they don't have to go and manage multiple channels of communication and they can be in one central location. I would say the second item, which in the hype of AI, I think gets overlooked, is just enhanced self-service workflows. again, talking to that Amazon example, you may not want to go to an AI and explain why you're returning a product. You may just want to click a button and begin the return process. And so I think we are envisioning a future of self-service rentable item selection. So whether that's, hey, I want a parking spot, I want to choose which spot I have. I want storage, I'll choose which storage I have. I think enhanced experience on the renewals front. There's a ton of open field opportunity here where, without getting too technical and nerdy, Funnel's centralized data architecture enables the opportunity for like automated cross-selling, right? Because we have your maintenance information, because we have a rich insights product that's analyzing calls and understanding renter sentiment, being able to use this extremely large pool of data to say, hey, we believe this resident is at risk of churning. What does it look like to cross-sell those to them? To say, hey, based on your application you submitted, you're auto verified for these 3 to 4 communities. Like, click here to confirm that lease now. So leveraging that tool, whether it's again to potentially retain revenue from someone who's at risk of churning, or even as an upsell opportunity. Let's say you have a new lease upcoming and you're trying to potentially push people from a sister community into that new lease up, and it's right down the road, right? Being able to market that. I think Funnel's unique data architecture supports that, as well as our current self-service workflows would allow that to be amplified even more.
And it really plays into like thinking about the renter experience and everything we say and are at Funnel, which is being renter centric. It's just like, how do we make sure that if somebody's unhappy for whatever reason in a community, if they would do better in a community that's nearby, how do we make sure that they know that's an option for them?
100%.
So we're going to switch gears here, but in addition to everything you do here at Funnel, you love endurance athletics of all kinds. So backcountry skiing, trail running, I'm sure there are more. How does that bleed over into like who you are at work and how you show up at work?
I think the first thing I'll say is it gives me the advantage of being able to hold conversation with Nicholas Thompson at Forum better than anyone. If you haven't checked out what he's done in the endurance space and you're listening to this, you should check it out now. It's incredible. All while being a fantastic leader. But anyways, to answer that question, I would say it really helps me separate myself from work. And I mean that in a healthy manner. And I think what I've found as I've gone throughout my career, as I've sat under different mentors, is if you aren't able to disconnect in some fashion, you will burn out. And while, to be clear, I love daydreaming about these future innovations in multifamily, and I probably do it to a unhealthy extent, I've learned that to thrive and to be able to show up for work on Monday or the next morning, right, be able to log on and really be fully energized, it requires that disconnect. And I do think endurance sports, specifically when I think of the sports like backcountry skiing, where you're traversing along a glacier and all of your focus has to be on each next step to make sure you're not about to step into a crevasse. The reason why I bring those up is because it requires focus, and you can't do it well. You can't be safe effectively if you're thinking about other things. And what I found for me as a human is, if I'm doing something where I can multitask, I will multitask. If I am doing something where I'm forced to be fully present, I will be fully present. And I think that's what I found in endurance sports, in the mountaineerings of the world. That has allowed me to healthfully disconnect, to really be my best self when I show up for work that next day.
Thank you for wearing many hats, not mini hats. And thanks for bringing your full self to Funnel, because I know that across our team, there are a lot of people who really appreciate everything you do and the work that you're doing. So thanks, Jack.
Appreciate that, Hannah.